So the 2010 World Cup in South Africa didn't go well at all for England. They were handed a pretty easy group against the USA, Algeria and Slovenia, and it looked like the Three Lions would top the group with ease. That didn't happen though, with Fabio Capello's side picking up 5 points as they came second behind the USA on goals scored. As group runners-up, England were handed a tough first knockout round game against Germany, where they were battered 4-1 by Joachim Löw's side. While Frank Lampard did have a goal incorrectly not given at an important time in the game, it wouldn't have mattered, as the Germans were just too good for England. But today we're going to look at all 23 of England's players at the 2010 World Cup and where they are now. Number 1 was David James. The eccentric head goalkeeper known as Calamity James was England's number 1 in South Africa, but didn't begin the tournament as first choice, playing 3 out of 4 of England's World Cup games. 8 years on and David James was retired at the age of 47, managing Kerala Blasters in India, 4 years after he was declared bankrupt. Number 2 was Glenn Johnson. A man who almost played every minute in South Africa, Glenn Johnson was arguably in the prime of his career at this point, having joined Liverpool in 2009. In 2018, Glenn Johnson is still a Premier League player at 33 years old, representing Stoke City where his contract is set to expire this summer. Number 3 was Ashley Cole. The best left back in the world at the time, even that wasn't enough to see Fabio Capello's side go further in the tournament, because surprisingly fullbacks aren't really match winners. Ashley Cole has been out in the MLS since 2016 with LA Galaxy and will still be there for the 2018 season. Ultimately though, everyone still thinks he's a massive dick. Number 4 was Steven Gerrard. The England captain in South Africa, Steven Gerrard got England's World Cup off to a perfect start, scoring within 4 minutes in the opening game against USA. Sadly though, that was as good as it got for England and Gerrard, who is now the manager of Liverpool's under-18 side as he looks to climb the managerial ladder. Number 5 was Michael Dawson. Based on the numbers, you'd have thought Michael Dawson was a starter for England, but didn't actually play a minute at the World Cup, the only centre-back in England's squad who didn't play. Dawson is now 34 years old and playing for Hull City in the Championship, who are in a battle to avoid relegation to League One. Number 6 was John Terry. The man who started 2010 as the England captain, John Terry no longer had the armband in South Africa, despite new skipper Rio Ferdinand missing the tournament due to injury. Terry clashed with Capello at the World Cup, questioning the Postman Pat lookalikes team selection. Terry would retire from international football in 2012 and he's now playing for Aston Villa in the Championship. Number 7 was Aaron Lennon. Injury meant that David Beckham wasn't going to the 2010 World Cup, so Aaron Lennon was the man handed his famous number 7 shirt. The winger started 2 games for England at the World Cup under Capello and has just signed for Burnley from Everton. Number 8 was Frank Lampard. The man who scored the most blatant goal that wasn't given, Frank Lampard's failure against Germany makes us so grateful that we now have goal line technology in football. Lampard retired from football last year after spending time in the MLS with New York City and is now working as a pundit, whilst also being married to TV presenter Christine Blakely. Number 9 was Peter Crouch. The Beanpole striker's incredible goal-scoring record for England was no good at the 2010 World Cup, with Crouchy failing to add to his impressive tally. 8 years on and amazingly Crouch is still a Premier League player with Stoke, and even more amazingly, he was linked with a move to Chelsea this month in one of the strangest rumours ever. Number 10 was Wayne Rooney. The country's all-time leading goal scorer didn't get any of his record-breaking goals in South Africa, instead just having a go at the fans for booing a dismal England side at the World Cup. Rooney is now back at Everton in 2018, having left Manchester United last summer. Number 11 was Joe Cole. The talented midfielder made 2 appearances off the bench for England at the World Cup, failing to have the kind of impact he had 4 years earlier when he scored that stunning volley against Sweden in the group stage. Cole is still going at the age of 36, lining up for Tampa Bay Rowdies in America, having a jolly old time stateside. Number 12 was Rob Green. The man who started England's opening game against USA, Rob Green cost the Three Lions victory after failing to handle Clint Dempsey's shot as the USA equalised. That was the end of Rob Green's World Cup, and he's now backup goalkeeper at Huddersfield Town, having been first choice at Leeds last season. Number 13 was Stephen Warnock. Yep, Stephen Warnock went to the 2010 World Cup, and it was probably the best holiday he's ever been on. The defender didn't have to play a minute of football and got to spend a few weeks away with the lads. In 2018, Warnock is still playing, having just joined League One Bradford City on loan from Burton. Number 14 was Gareth Barry. The midfielder was an experienced figure at the 2010 World Cup at the age of 29, whereas now he's just plain old. Barry is with West Brom nowadays and became the player with the most Premier League appearances earlier in the season, with seemingly no signs of stopping. Number 15 was Matthew Upson. He started England's final 2 games at the tournament alongside John Terry, but my word did Matty Upson have a shocker against Germany. Sure, he managed to get on the score sheet, but defensively it looked like Upson was running through treacle as the 3 lines were constantly opened up. Upson is now retired and works as a pundit, often appearing on Match of the Day when none of the main pundits like Shearer or Ian Wright fancy it. Number 16 was James Milner. He would start 3 of the 4 World Cup games for England, operating on the left flank, back when he was sort of considered as a flying winger rather than the dependable centre midfielder he is today. Milner has just turned 32 and is still with Liverpool, where he is vice-captain behind Jordan Henderson. Boring, isn't it? Number 17 was Shaun Wright-Phillips. The winger was in his second spell with Manchester City at the time, but would make just 2 substitute appearances for the 3 lines, failing to have any impact off the bench. At the time he was the main Wright-Phillips brother, but Bradley has since eclipsed him with his efforts for New York Red Bulls, while Shaun is now 36 and playing for Phoenix Rising in the second tier of American football, no, not the NFL, a team who are partially owned by Didier Drogba. Number 18 was Jamie Carragher. The oldest outfield player at the World Cup for England, Carragher played a game and a half in the tournament and still managed to pick up 2 bookings in the process, making up for the loss of his legs by just hacking his opponents down at any opportunity. Carragher has just turned 40 and works as a pundit for Sky Sports as part of the Monday Night Football double act with Gary Neville. Number 19 was Jermaine Defoe. England's joint top scorer in South Africa, Defoe scored the only goal of the game in England's only win against Slovenia in the group stage. Now aged 35, Defoe is still playing Premier League football, now with Bournemouth, who he previously represented as a youngster. Number 20 was Ledley King. The man with the worst knees in football, Ledley King's fitness issues meant he only played a half of football at the World Cup, starting the first game alongside John Terry. Sadly, injury ended King's career early and he's now working as a Tottenham ambassador, as well as being the CEO of 7 of the Best, which is an online football gambling game apparently. Number 21 was Emile Heskey. Banter Claus himself, Emile Heskey went to the 2010 World Cup after a season in which he scored an incredible 3 goals for Aston Villa, showing just how competent a manager Fabio Capello was for England. In a shock to absolutely no one, Heskey didn't win the World Cup for England, and the big man is now looking to get into coaching, reportedly working with Egerton FC, who play in the Cheshire Football League. Number 22 was Michael Carrick. Despite his glorious passing, Michael Carrick didn't play a minute of football in South Africa, summing up what was an underwhelming international career for Carrick. The midfielder is now captain at Manchester United but is set to retire at the end of the season, when he will join Jose Mourinho's coaching staff. And finally, number 23 was Joe Hart. The third choice keeper at the 2010 World Cup, Joe Hart was actually only 23 years old at the time, having just completed an impressive season on loan at Birmingham. After the World Cup, Hart would cement his position as Man City's number 1 keeper and eventually England's, but now in 2010, Hart isn't even first choice while on loan at West Ham. Surely he'll be at the World Cup in Russia, but does he really deserve still to be England's number 1? So that's where England's 2010 World Cup squad are now. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.